As fun as it is to watch a great movie, there's no guarantee that you'll walk out of the theater feeling good yourself. Here are a few fantastic flicks where the last few minutes are so monumentally depressing that they're almost guaranteed to wring a few tears from the audience. If you only saw the last 3 minutes of End of Watch, you might think this cop drama was ending on a happy note. The final scene features two buddies having a laugh over a crazy story on what looks like a pretty good day. Unfortunately, context is everything. In actuality, the camaraderie between officers Brian Taylor and Mike Zavala is an incredibly bittersweet flashback scene, one that jumps back to a moment before Zavala was gunned down by gangsters. Taylor and Zavala are super cops. In fact, they're such good cops that they try to take down the Sinaloa cartel, only that doesn't pan out too well. After disrupting the cartel's business, the officers are ambushed by heavily armed thugs, and despite their bravery, Taylor is gravely injured and Zavala is murdered. After learning about his partner's death, Taylor is absolutely shattered. Zavala was his best friend in the world, and at the funeral, Taylor is so grief-stricken that he can only muster 4 powerful words that make all those happy moments heartbreaking. He was my brother. Despite their godlike superpowers, the Avengers are a sad bunch of people, and the most tragic might just be Steve Rogers, a man out of time. In Captain America: The First Avenger, the star-spangled superhero decides to sacrifice his life, crashing a hydroplane into the Arctic ice. In those final moments before taking the plunge, Cap promises to take his new love Peggy Carter dancing as soon as he returns. Obviously, neither expect Steve to make it back home, but, well, you've seen the movies.
I understood that reference.
When Cap finally returns, he learns that he's been asleep for nearly 7 decades. It's a gut punch of a moment, and the look of shock and sadness on Cap's face is heartbreaking. Yeah, he survived the suicide mission, but the world he knew is gone, and he's been separated from the woman he loves for most of a century. When Fury finally asks if Cap is going to be okay, all his pain is summed up in one sentence.
Yeah, I had a date.
War movies aren't really known for their upbeat endings, but when it comes to pure tear-jerking power, nothing goes after your heartstrings like 1989's Glory. This Civil War flick tells the story of the 54th Massachusetts Infantry, which was the first African-American regiment to fight for the Union Army. The regiment was led by Colonel Robert Shaw, played in the film by Matthew Broderick, and after overcoming all the racism you'd expect from the 1860s, Shaw and the 54th wind up leading the charge in the film's climactic battle. Unfortunately, that battle doesn't go their way. After being surrounded by Confederate soldiers, Shaw charges the enemy, hoping to inspire his men, and he's quickly gunned down. Enraged, Private Silas Tripp, a role that earned Denzel Washington an Academy Award, picks up the flag and charges after the colonel, only to be shot down seconds later. Their sacrifice inspires the rest of the 54th to rush out of the ravine and continue their charge. But despite their bravery, the historic soldiers are no match for cannonballs, and all the characters we've come to love, played by the likes of Morgan Freeman, Cary Elwes, and Andre Braugher, are blown to oblivion. If that wasn't sad enough, the movie ends with Shaw's and Tripp's bodies being buried side by side in a mass grave. Gone Baby Gone isn't exactly a feel-good film to begin with, and the ending is appropriately downbeat. Based on the novel by Dennis Lehane, this thriller follows 2 Boston detectives, Patrick Kenzie and Angie Gennaro, who are hired to find a little girl named Amanda. At first, they believe this kid was murdered by a local drug dealer, but as they dig deeper into the case, they discover a surprising conspiracy. As it turns out, Amanda's concerned uncle kidnapped her from her abusive addict mother with the help of several high-ranking cops. But Patrick isn't a big believer in moral ambiguity and brings the conspiracy down and has the little girl sent back home.
You may not regret it when you get home. You may not regret it for a year, but when you get to where I am, I promise you, you will.
Sure enough, it doesn't take long for regret to set in when Patrick goes to visit Amanda. He sees that her mom is just as awful as ever and realizes he might have damned Amanda to a life of poverty, neglect, and mistreatment. In the final moments, he volunteers to babysit Amanda and sits beside her, watching the traumatized, lonely girl as she stares at the television. It might seem weird to say this about a movie where a gorilla fights a helicopter, but Rise of the Planet of the Apes has more than its fair share of emotional moments. Nothing can top the finale when Caesar, aptly played by mocap master Andy Serkis, says goodbye to his human friend Will Rodman. Their relationship is the emotional crux of the story. Caesar has known Will his entire life, and the biologist is basically his adoptive dad. In fact, Will is the guy who gave Caesar his above-average intelligence. But after Will is forced to put Caesar in a primate sanctuary, the chimpanzee decides it's time for a revolution. After sparking a full-blown primate rebellion and a battle on the Golden Gate Bridge, Caesar and his army disappear into a redwood forest. But before vanishing into the trees, Caesar is confronted by Will, who begs the chimp to come back home. That's when Caesar pulls his foster father close and whispers in his ear,
"Caesar is home."
With those three powerful words, Caesar and Will realize nothing will ever be the same. Tom Hanks movies generally leave audiences feeling pretty good, but Road to Perdition is a bloody exception to that cheerful rule. This gangster flick finds Hanks playing Michael Sullivan Sr., a mob enforcer out for revenge while trying to make sure his surviving son, Michael Jr., doesn't wind up dead too. That's easier said than done when you're being hunted by a psychopathic hitman. For a moment, it seems like everything might be okay. Then Michael's violent past catches up with him when he's ambushed by the assassin. After taking 2 bullets in the back, Michael lies dying as the psychopathic hitman assembles an old-timey camera and begins taking photos of his bloody victim. Michael Jr. shows up with a gun to interrupt the hitman's sick hobby, but unlike his dad, the boy isn't a killer. Fortunately, the distraction gives his father enough time to gun down the assassin before shuffling off this mortal coil. What really seals the deal and cues the sobbing, though, is Michael Jr.'s final lines, answering the question of whether his father was a good man.
I always give the same answer. I just tell them, he was my father.
Directed by Martin Scorsese, Shutter Island is a frightening film noir that finds Leonardo DiCaprio as Teddy Daniels, a detective who's investigating a disappearance on an Alcatraz-style mental hospital. But as Teddy and his partner dig deeper into the case, Teddy makes a horrible discovery. He isn't really Teddy. In reality, he's Andrew Latis, a World War II vet who killed his mentally ill wife after she murdered their kids. His partner is actually his psychologist, and the whole investigation is an elaborate role-playing game meant to bring Andrew back to reality. And if the game doesn't work, then poor Andrew has to get lobotomized. After this shocking twist, it seems that Andrew reverts back to his Teddy persona, forcing his doctors to perform the lobotomy. But before he's taken away to his mind-numbing fate, Teddy looks over at Chuck and asks a haunting question.
Which would be worse? To live as a monster? Or to die as a good man?
It's a simple line, but it conveys the crushing sadness of Andrew's story. The experiment worked. Andrew knows exactly who he is and what he's done. It's his guilt that leads him to accept his grisly fate. Arnold Schwarzenegger movies aren't generally considered tear-jerkers, but the ending of Terminator 2 Judgment Day has caused so many sobs from macho movie fans that it's basically the action movie equivalent of The Notebook.
You think I'm unemotional, don't you? I can be emotional! Jesus, I cried like a child at the end of Terminator 2!
Sent from the future to protect teenage John Connor, the T-800 starts out this sci-fi flick as an ice-cold killer robot. As he spends time with the future resistance leader, however, the T-800 becomes the teen's best friend and father figure, growing increasingly lovable as he battles with a shape-shifting android. He's picking up slang words, developing human emotions, and learning you can't just go around killing people. He also realizes that if humanity is going to survive, then all Terminators need to be destroyed. After defeating the T-1000, Arnold realizes that if he doesn't destroy the advanced AI inside his own head, that tech will eventually give rise to the robot rebellion that will doom mankind. So despite John's pleas for him to stay, the T-800 slowly lowers himself into a pit of molten steel. He gives a thumbs up before disintegrating completely, letting John know everything is going to be okay. But despite that reassurance, poor John is in tears, and so is everybody watching the saddest ending in Schwarzenegger's career.
I know now why you cry, but it's something I can never do.
With movies like Requiem for a Dream in his filmography, it's safe to say that Darren Aronofsky loves a truly depressing ending. But of all the films he's ever directed, none have caused as much sobbing as The Wrestler. This gritty and grim drama follows the story of Randy the Ram Robinson, a professional wrestler who's far from his in-ring glory days. This dude has lived a hard life and made some bad decisions, and now he's all alone. His daughter doesn't want anything to do with him, his romantic life isn't working out, and the world outside the ring is nothing but pain and misery. Lonely and depressed, Randy gets back into the wrestling game, where at least the fans respect and adore him. But stepping back into the ring comes at a high price. Randy has a bad heart and knows that another match might be his last. However, when he hears the cheers of the crowd, the wrestler climbs up onto the turnbuckle to perform his signature move, even as his heart starts to fail him. When he leaps down onto his opponent, we know it's the last time he'll ever do the legendary Ram Jam. But it's all worth it for Randy because he's living and dying for the only family he's ever known, the fans, who now have to watch their hero die in the ring in front of them.
Man on Fire may not have been a favourite of critics, but Denzel Washington's performance as alcoholic bodyguard John Creasy was one of the most moving of his career. After years of booze and bullets, Creasy gets a shot at redemption as a bodyguard for Peter, played by Dakota Fanning. When a powerful crime syndicate captures Peter, Creasy buys pretty much every gun in Mexico and goes on a murder spree, eventually capturing the kidnapper's brother. Dying from a gunshot wound, Creasy trades himself for the safety of his charge. But before handing himself over, he reunites with Peter for just a few seconds. When he tells her goodbye, it's a moment that will make even the toughest action fan weep.
Where are you going?
I'm going home too.
While the boxing drama $1 Million Baby may at times feel as inspirational as Rocky Balboa never ended a movie quite like this. Hilary Swank plays Maggie Fitzgerald, a backwoods waitress hoping to make a name as a boxer, and director Clint Eastwood plays grizzled trainer Frankie Dunn. Dunn is reluctant to teach a woman at first, especially one as old as Maggie. But eventually, her persistence wins him over. Maggie proves her worth, KOing her way to a championship fight, and that's when the movie takes a hard left turn. Maggie is paralyzed from the neck down when her opponent illegally punches her after the bell. Our hero falls hard from the punch, smashing her neck against a footstool. Maggie loses her leg, and she begs her trainer to end her suffering. Dunn refuses at first, but agrees after Maggie tries and fails to commit suicide. Before Dunn administers the lethal injection, he tells Maggie the meaning of her Irish nickname.
Kushla means my darling, my blood.
Even steely-eyed Eastwood can't keep the tears back here. And you know, if even Dirty Harry is getting weepy, there's no way you're going to be able to hold it back.
Niagara Falls, Frankie Angel.
After the tragic death of bear enthusiast Timothy Treadwell at the jaws of a brown bear, director Werner Herzog assembled Treadwell's footage and created Grizzly Man, one of the most moving documentaries of all time. Grizzly Man follows Treadwell as he journeys into the Alaskan wilderness, interacts with animals, and shares his unique view about a man's place in nature. While Treadwell's behavior is sometimes questionable, it's hard not to admire his passion. With the help of Herzog's guiding hand, we grow attached to Treadwell as Grizzly Man heads for its inevitable tragic ending. While we go into Grizzly Man knowing Treadwell's fate, it's upsetting to finally say goodbye to such a unique soul. In the film's last moments, we watch for the last time as Treadwell wanders into the woods, accompanied by two fuzzy friends and a mournful country song that feels like it was written just for him. While Wes Anderson directs comedies, there's always a deep sense of melancholy underlying his work. That's especially true for the Grand Budapest Hotel. Set in the fictional European country of Zubrovka, the film's narrative is nestled inside multiple timelines, with the bulk of it set during the 1930s. Our hero, Zero Mustafa, played by both Tony Revolori and Ev Murray Abraham, works as a lobby boy at the Grand Budapest Hotel, under the guidance of flamboyant concierge M. Gustav, played by Ralph Fiennes. The plot involves a dead heiress, a missing painting, and a family of greedy goons, but the drama revolves around the dark shadow hanging over this dream world. In the 1930s, the hotel is an impossibly charming world of pastel colours. As the story continues, both Zubrovka and Grand Budapest are overrun by enemy forces, quasi-Nazis followed by quasi-Soviets. As the totalitarian horrors of the 20th century creep in, M. Gustav's civilized world starts to fade. Guests stop coming, and eventually the building is torn down. M. Gustav is killed during the war. Communism washes over Zubrovka, and Zero is left alone with nothing nothing but his memories of better days. The film ends with the nostalgic author saying over the closing frame, "It was an enchanting old ruin, but I never managed to see it again." On its cold, grey surface, The Black Coat's Daughter is a movie about a girl who's demonically possessed, but under the slow-building dread and eerie music, there's a tragic story about a helpless child afraid of being alone. Played at first by Kiernan Shipka and later by Emma Roberts, Kat is a boarding school student with some serious abandonment issues. When her parents are late to pick her up for the semester break, Kat freaks out. It doesn't help matters any when she has an unsettling dream about her parents' untimely fate. Terrified her parents are dead and that she'll be all alone in the world, Kat literally makes a deal with the devil, allowing herself to be possessed in exchange for companionship. She's so afraid of losing the spirit's company, she beheads 3 people at its urging. When a priest exorcises the demon from Kat, she's so scared of being alone that she begs the beast to stay. Unfortunately, her pleas are no match for holy water. Years later, an older Kat murders 2 new victims and brings their heads back to the school, hoping her sacrifice will summon the demon. When she realizes the evil spirit has left the school behind, the movie ends with Kat sobbing and screaming into the wintry void. She realizes now that she's truly by herself. Nobody will ever come to pick her up, and even the devil doesn't want her. Directed by Damien Chazelle, La La Land follows 2 star-crossed lovers, Emma Stone as aspiring actress Mia and jazz devotee Sebastian, played by Ryan Gosling. Mia and Sebastian enjoy the happiness and heartache all long-term relationships face. Eventually, because of their conflicting ambitions, they go their separate ways. 5 years later, Mia is a movie star and Sebastian runs a thriving nightclub. One night, they lock eyes across a room and we're treated to an elaborate dream sequence. It's the kind of ending we expect to see. The guy and girl end up with one another and live happily ever after. But the dream soon comes to an end with Mia and Sebastian once again going their own ways. It's a heartbreaking reminder that the choices we make always leave the door open for regret. Before Tony Stark made his Iron Man suit, and before Christian Bale donned the Bat Cowl, there was Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Jackman played Logan to perfection, to the point where it almost seems impossible that any actor could ever replace him in the role. He defined Wolverine for well over a decade, appearing in every X-Men movie up until his blood-soaked swan song, 2017's Logan. Set in the near-distant future, Logan follows a dying Wolverine as he uses the last of his strength to protect the young Laura, who Logan eventually learns is actually his clone. A shady scientist wants Laura for nefarious purposes, and he has the vicious cybernetic Reavers under his command. At first, Logan is such a broken man that he wants nothing to do with Laura, and only the aging Professor X convinces him to do the right thing. Unfortunately, Professor X doesn't survive the journey, but Logan continues to help Laura all the same. When Laura and other mutant children try to escape into Canada, Wolverine makes his final stand in the woods to protect their escape. But even after fighting all the Reavers, Logan still must face a clone made to be a stronger, younger version of himself. With the help of Laura and her allies, the clone is killed, but Logan's wounds are too much for him. Thankfully, after a brutal life full of hard decisions, Logan enjoys a moment of fatherly love before shuffling off this mortal coil. In the film's final scene, a tearful Laura gives Logan the eulogy he deserves, quoting Alan Ludd's final monologue from the classic western Shane.
There's no living with the killing. There's no going back. Right or wrong, it's a brand. A brand that sticks.
After ending her speech, Laura tips the cross on his grave over on his side, marking the Wolverine's final resting place with an X. While the past few years have given us plenty of amazing superhero movies, Logan was the first superhero movie to truly make audiences weep for such an iconic character. Since Thanos' first MCU appearance in 2012, Marvel fans couldn't wait for the big purple baddie to throw down with the Avengers. The MCU filmmakers only gave us brief, teasing glimpses of the Mad Titan, first a little bit in the initial Avengers movie, then a lot more in Guardians of the Galaxy, and later in Avengers Age of Ultron. Finally, 6 years after Avengers, Thanos finally arrived with his Infinity Gauntlet, and Earth's mightiest heroes were completely overmatched. It looked like Thor was going to save the day when he slammed Stormbreaker into the Mad Titan's chest, but as the God of Thunder quickly learned,
You should have gone for the head.
and just like that, with a snap of his fingers, Thanos wiped out half the population of the universe, including the majority of our beloved heroes, along with most of the Avengers turning to dust. Almost all the Guardians fell victim to Thanos' purge. Rocket was there to watch teenage Groot fade away and to hear his final "I am Groot." Adding to the sorrow of many fans, Guardians of the Galaxy's writer and director James Gunn would eventually reveal that Groot's last "I am Groot" translated into the word "Dad." For many fans, Peter Parker's death was the most painful to watch. Even though he just fought the toughest villain in the MCU, Peter's still just a kid afraid of fading away. Infinity War may have the darkest ending of any major blockbuster ever. There's no moral victory, no feel-good speech. For the first time, the Avengers have truly lost, and it all ends with Thanos admiring his handiwork, smiling as the sun rises on a grateful universe.